Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Thomas. Tonight we're back here with the Green Scorpion. Tonight we got, well, the top 10 video game Boomerang Wielders. So yeah, basically a weapon from down under is about to be used. So let's see who uses it the best. Be sure to like, subscribe for more. Hope you enjoy. And nothing else. Let's go. Here we go.
Hello everyone, the Green Scorpion here, and it's finally time for Weapons Month 3. For the rest of the month, we'll be counting down the best using 5 new weapons. In the past, we've covered some of the most basic cornerstones of martial combat, as well as some weapons so bizarre that they could never be so awesome in real life. Swords, sights, bombs, sniper rifles, even musical instruments have been examined as tools for combat. But in Weapons Month 3, expect some more creative definition of the term weapons, unconventional or otherwise. Honestly, guys, I really appreciate the interest that some of you took in my weapons lists. When I started this first Weapons Month, it was just a random idea that I was throwing out there. But sure enough, it came back. Kind of like...
Just a guy with a boomerang. I didn't ask for all this flying and magic.
The boomerang is a particular version of a throwing stick, designed when thrown to spin about in an axis perpendicular to its direction of flight. There are a lot of misconceptions about this twirling tool. Though it is usually seen strictly as a trademark for the Australian Aboriginals, archaeology tells us that they may have also been used in ancient Egypt and Scandinavia.
Really?
We also are used to seeing the kind of L shape, but there are actually several different shapes.
Or 7,
Essentially, there
depends
are
on
two
how you look
types,
at it.
returning and non-returning. What makes it a boomerang isn't that it comes back, it's that it spins. In fact, even a returning boomerang won't come back if it actually makes contact with something. But this is fantasy, and like the whip, the boomerang becomes this magically convenient weapon, great for both long-range bludgeoning and geometric trick shots. These 10 boomerangers are not only great fighters, but they also choose to flourish their attacks using this mathematical masterwork. Now let me get the rules out of the way. Only games I've played, only one per franchise, and only characters that originated from video games, as per usual. I know, I want to include Sokka from The Last Airbender too, but them's the rules. Anyway, I am the Green Scorpion, and this is the top 10 greatest boomerang wielders in video games.
Alright, let's use first. Well, considering we see Link over there, I wouldn't be surprised if he was the first. Or at least part of the list. So it looks like he's not doing so well. Oh, there we go.
I can't say that I really cared for Final Fantasy XIII that much, but it has some nice things going for it. The paradigm system is interesting, and it has some beautiful music. And I really like half of the main cast. The other half I mostly despise. But one I really did like was Hope's theme. The youngest of the party members, Hope is on vacation with his mother Nora when they are unexpectedly pulled into quarantine by the government. Long story short, Hope and Nora get saved from being purged, but Nora dies helping Snow fight off the military. Hope wants revenge, blaming Snow for Nora's death, and ends up stuck with the party, who have all been turned into these magical slaves called LCA.
Not a single clue about this whole sea mess.
And must fulfill their focus and be turned into techno-zombies. Did you get all that? Good, moving on. Though I can't really get into it here, I found Hope's plight really compelling as he struggles to cope with his loss and actually considers the possibility of taking Snow's life for revenge. Not that anyone cares about the countless Marines you're constantly slaughtering. The bottom line is that Hope's arc is his coming of age. His first real fight, he desperately grabs the first weapon he can think of, a boomerang. It's never really explained, but I always figured that he already had this at the time. Boomerangs nowadays are used more as toys than as actual instruments of violence, so maybe Hope had bought it while on vacation. And it totally fits for his weapon to be a toy, since he is literally using his childhood to defend himself from the real world. Hope only makes number 10 because, unless you're playing against the grain, Hope will rarely actually use his weapon. His 3 main roles in battle are Ravager, Synergist, and Medic, making him the best support character in the game. As a Ravager,
So,
Hope uses
not a lot
black
of
magic to
use
exploit
out of the
elemental weaknesses
boomerang.
and drive up the damage multiplier so that the commandos like Lightning can do some real damage. As a synergist, he casts protective buffs on the party, and as a medic, he heals. Hope has the best magic stats and spell list in the game, but if you really want to, you can build up his commando abilities and have him use that boomerang. According to the wiki, this plaything utilizes a technology called the antimatter manipulation principle, the same thing that lets Lightning do all this weird gravity stuff. Thanks to AMP, Hope's boomerang can make attacks on multiple targets before returning to Hope, which is a popular ability for video game boomerangs. Finally, Hope's Eidolon
Was that an Eidolon?
is Alexander, one of the coolest summons in Final Fantasy history. So, all in all, Hope is a below average
basically a
boomeranger,
summon.
but a pretty cool character, at least in my opinion.
To each your own, as they say. Number 9.
Number 9 is kind of the
the Boomerang
standard for
Bros.
this sort of thing, so let's just say that this is where the list really gets spinning. Boomerang Bros have been an enemy in the Mario universe since Super Mario Bros. 3, where they trek the map, blocking your path with a challenge and rewarding you with a special surprise. They kind of disappeared during the SNES and N64 era, but re-emerged as a regular starting with Mario All-Star Baseball. Like most Mario enemies, Boomerang Bro is sometimes considered as several, but occasionally represented as an individual character, like in the baseball games, where he appears sort of as a palette for his more famous cousin, the Hammer Bro. Boomerang Bro sports his own stats though, not to mention he bats with a giant boomerang, so to me he's more than just an alternate costume. As an enemy, Boomerang Bro hops around while throwing 1 or 2 returning sticks at a time, so if he's well positioned, it can sometimes be a challenge just getting to him before knocking him out. In Super Mario 3D Land,
depends how you
he
play him.
gave rise to one of my new favorite power-ups, the Boomerang Flower. So now Mario can wield the Blue Koopa's signature weapon. One of his tougher appearances might be in Superstar Saga. The Svelte brothers of the Beam Bean Kingdom patrol the desert, and if you get hit by one of their sweeping attacks, you'll be tripped up for the turn, preventing you from reacting to further attacks. As a loyal servant to Bowser, Boomerang Bro rises above the Koopa ranks with style and personality.
So, too bad he barely hits them. And playing if you play your cards right. Am I right?
I try not to use Dynasty Warriors as a crutch, but sometimes there's a character who stands out from the several dozen Chinese warlords. From the
So,
southern
who you got
Nanlong
this
tribe, Zhurong was set in Romance of the Three Kingdoms to
Zhurong.
favor throwing daggers, but in the games uses either daggers or a much cooler giant boomerang. Notice that her boomerang is of more traditional geometry, still designed to spin
looks
but
like
not
a Y.
expected to actually arch back to its thrower. But then again, this is Dynasty Warriors, so physics be damned, that thing still comes back when you throw it. Zhurong is married to Meng Huo, who is considered to be one of the worst characters in the franchise. Meng Huo commands the Nanman people, but it's clear that Zhurong is the brains of the operation, and her track record is generally more victorious than her hubbies. They love each other though, and Zhurong is happy to fight for her husband, dishing out crazy circular swings and occasionally throwing the boomerang to pull enemies back towards her. Zhurong is often called the daughter of the sun god, and as such uses her Musou abilities to set the boomerang on fire. Seeing her
that's
tear through
impressive.
hundreds of soldiers might make the number 8 scene a little low for her. Well, it's just that this is Dynasty Warriors, where the average enemy has the durability and intellect of a piñata. I know I
That's
didn't
good.
penalize the
Hey,
other
Herb,
characters
that
as
makes
much for
sense.
this, but Diao Chan had weapon metaphor on her side, and Lu Bu is just a god among men. Still,
True.
Zhurong is one of my preferred characters in the franchise, and her army of Amazons would be lost without her.
I mean, comparing true. And again, Lu Bu, Daochan, kind of major players in the romance. But Zhou, sorry, not so much. Ouch. Yeah, I mean, with, games like, Hyrule Warriors and, like earlier, Dynasty Warriors, you're kind of expecting some easy enemies. Again, grunts, what do you expect? I mean, hey, at least Hyrule Warriors gave us, like, giant boss monsters you could fight. Alright, moving along. Let's see who's number 7.
Similar to Boomerang Bro, Sir Kibble is a common enemy among the Kirby series with a lot of charm and flavor. And if you take a moment, you might actually see why I like him so much. First, there's the design. Sir Kibble sits in his golden armor with a sort of Greek hoplite helmet. When in danger, he can pull the spine off of his helmet and use it as a sword or, in fact, a boomerang. That's pretty creative. Second,
I think he
there's
mostly
utility.
uses it for
Sir Kibble gives Kirby the cutter ability, which is one of my favorites.
Boomerang.
It has range, it can cut ropes, and it has some pretty good damage. So why
And
give the spot to the common crony instead of Kirby himself? Well, Kirby has a lot of copy abilities, and he can only use the bladed boomerang because he's copying Sir Kibble. And although Kirby can lay waste to dozens of Sir Kibbles without batting an eye, Sir Kibble is capable of everything that Cutter Kirby is, especially in Kirby Superstar and Kirby Superstar Ultra. In these games, Player 2 can take control of the Knights, augmented by an actual health bar instead of dying after one hit.
Thank you.
He basically controls the same as Cutter Kirby, but that's hardly a bad thing. Plus, you're never in danger of losing the ability with Sir Kibble. This Golden Knight can use the boomerang both as a throwing weapon and as a sword.
Forgotten Lands, you can actually charge that thing up for more damage.
Hangs there for a second and then comes straight back, though Kibble can curve it if he wants to. He also has a dashing melee attack and, of course, the final cutter. Yeah, you know Kirby's awesome recovery move in Smash Bros? Stole it from Sir Kibble. In Superstar Ultra, you can also play as Sir Kibble in Partner Arena, and his combination of short and long range tactics make him a hard knight to beat.
That'll be fun to watch. Or 6?
In Mega Man X5, a space colony is set to crash into the Earth, all part of Sigma's plan. As if this weren't enough for X and Zero to deal with, this guy keeps showing up at their doorstep. This is Dynamo, a self-serving Reploid hired by Sigma to be a thorn in your side. At 2 different points in the game, Dynamo will start attacking your facility. As either X or Zero, you go out to talk to him and he explains that his goal is simply to disturb you. Then you fight. Dynamo isn't a particularly difficult opponent, especially if you spam the wing spiral, but he has some tricks up his sleeve and his own version of Zero's Z-Saber. Z-Saber?
Zero's Z-Saber.
Dynamo throws a purple lightsaber boomerang sort of thing and also uses it as a melee weapon, all the while jumping around and displaying his winning smile. He also has different moves that he uses depending on whether he's fighting X or Zero. Dynamo is smart, and even though he has been hired by Sigma, he doesn't have any particularly hard feelings for the Maverick Hunters. He'll politely introduce himself, compliment his opponent, banter a little bit about himself, and when he starts to lose, he has the sense to retreat. Dynamo is really out for himself, and advises X that he should stop trying to save the people all the time if he wants to avoid an untimely death. Some would call this cowardice, but really, I just think Dynamo is level-headed. His job isn't to kill you, just to buy time so that you can't stop the colony from crashing. So he flies in, does some fancy tricks, and flies back out again, almost like he's the boomerang. But that's pushing it. Dynamo appears again as a hidden boss in Mega Man X6, hoping to use the Nightmare Force to empower himself. And despite being noticeably more powerful and throwing 4 boomerangs at a time, Dynamo would rather leave intact than stick it out and risk death. To this day, he's one of the few adversaries of the Maverick Hunters still living, so who's to argue with his method? More of a nuisance than a threat, that's exactly what makes Dynamo the perfect wielder for the boomerang. But as we enter the top 5, let's get into some serious warriors.
That makes sense. Alright, let's go. Number 5.
Okay, you all knew he was coming.
Here it comes.
It's Link. In case you were new to Weapons Month, Link has been credited in top 10s for his diligence as a swordsman, archer, and bomber. Whether it's from the Triforce of Courage or just natural talent, Link is a jack of all trades when it comes to weapons, and the boomerang is the 4th of his usual arsenal. Link relies on the boomerang quite often in conjunction to his other weapons, using it to stun enemies from afar before he can go in for the kill. In Ocarina of Time, they added its ability to strike multiple targets. This proves invaluable against bosses like Baronade and Kalidamos from Wind Waker. And interestingly, the boomerang can only be used by young Link in Ocarina of Time, which kind of follows the idea that the boomerang is more of a toy than a weapon. In Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, the boomerang got even better with Link's ability to plan its exact flight path, which is great for solving puzzles and grabbing far-off keys. It can even be infused with fire or ice by throwing it through certain torches. Then there's the Gale Boomerang from Twilight Princess, which creates a mini tornado when thrown. One particular example is in Majora's Mask, when Link uses the Zora Mask. The fins on his arms are as sharp as swords, and can actually be flung off and return like double boomerangs. They also serve as Zora Link's melee weapons and as a shield. Link even brings his trusty toy with him to Soul Calibur 2, along with his other favorite weapons. The funny thing is, even though I've put Link on 4 Weapons Month lists now, this is the highest he's ever gotten. The boomerang
Well,
isn't exactly
sword,
the
I think.
main weapon in
I'll
Link's
double-check that
repertoire.
one.
Heck, he doesn't even have one in Skyward Sword, but he uses it better than a lot of other video game characters, and it's enough of a constant to get him to the number 5 spot.
I mean, that's saying a lot.
That
to
being
how many...
said, if I ever use Link in one of these ever again, somebody shoot me.
Someone's gonna hold that promise to you. Double check that.
Alright, let's see. Which League
Hello,
champion
lol.
haven't we talked about yet?
Any
Zed,
boomerangs?
Zyra, Fiddlesticks, Gangplank, Katarina. Oh, here we go.
Oh, there we go. Yep. Okay, multiple enemies coming back. Makes sense. What do you got?
Sivir's past is kind of
Okay,
sketchy,
Sivir?
both story-wise and in the meta. Sivir
Okay.
is an attack damage carry, but functions very different from the usual ADCs like Caitlyn and Miss Fortune. Because of this, she's gotten a lot of reworks to try and keep her competitive while still preserving her uniqueness. Her storyline
How so?
until recently was also sort of separate from a lot of the lore. Sivir is a mercenary and will lend her talents to anyone for the right pay. Her no questions asked policy made her especially popular with Noxus, who sometimes had less wholesome jobs for her. But during the
Really?
war with Ionia, even Sivir washed her hands of Noxian politics. Over the years, Sivir made a fortune in
Yeah,
her
fair
work,
enough. I
and as a
probably
League
would too.
champion, she would fight for any cause if you paid her enough. This tended to make other champions despise
Is that
her,
Wonder Woman?
especially patriots like Garen, Katarina, or Aurelia. In a new story development, Sivir is hired by Cassiopeia to help uncover a treasure in the Shurima Desert. This unlikely duo inadvertently releases an ancient secret, and right now, I can't wait to find out where they're going with this. Sivir fights with a crossblade, with a rounded design much like Zhu Rong's weapon, though it also has similarities to a Rajput chakra. When auto-attacking, it does not return to her,
Does look like
making it
chakra.
more like, well, an actual boomerang. But then there's her first spell, Boomerang Blade. This attack deals significant
Wait, it
amount of
literally says
damage to
boomerang.
anyone it hits, and it can damage enemies on the return as well. And by moving around after throwing it, it can sometimes out-juke opponents for the second hit. Ricochet lets Sivir bounce her attack off several different enemies, and she even has a handy spell shield, which blocks incoming spells and converts them into mana for Sivir to use for
Dang.
more boomerang attacks. Her ultimate, On the Hunt, passively increases her attack speed, but when activated, gives Sivir and all nearby allies a huge boost of movement speed. When combined
really?
with her passive, Fleet of Foot, Sivir is great at chasing down foes and securing the kill. Sivir's alignments in the past have been pretty unreliable, and though she is now making some lofty alliances with Cassiopeia and Renekton, her most trusted ally is her Gilded Crossblade.
Always gotta trust your weapon. Which, yeah, fair enough. I mean, sometimes when you're Merc, the only things you could trust are your weapons. I mean, hey, as long as they pay the right price, you got it. Other than that, I got really nothing else for this one, because don't really see a lot of boomerangs in my games. Anyway, time for the final 3. Let's see who's next.
Our next entrant comes from Metal Gear Ghost Babel for the Game Boy Color. If you've never
Game Boy
heard of
Color?
it, it's a non-canon addition to the Metal Gear series based more on the original games, but with story elements reminiscent of Metal Gear Solid. It's a great stealth game,
Okay.
pushing the Game Boy to its graphical limits and delivering an interesting experience. But anyway, Slasher Hawk fits right in as a Metal
that's
Gear
Slasher.
boss with an unorthodox skill set and a far-fetched but quite tragic backstory.
Oh.
Born in Australia, he was abandoned as a baby and adopted by an Aborigine couple, but the rest of his tribe would not accept him no matter how hard he tried to master their rituals. After his
Jeez.
foster parents died, his tribe sent him away, his only friend in the world being a black hawk that he claims is his totem. This eventually led to him joining the Special Forces
Wait,
group
is that
known as
Hawk
Black
talking?
Chamber.
Or is this just
Let's
him?
talk about the fight though. Slasher scoffs at you if you use the word boomerang, preferring to use the Aborigine word weegly. These weegly are made of 5-foot-long steel, and it is said that he can throw them hard enough to cut a cow clear in half. A style that he inspired from juggling and Chinese martial arts. The fact that he throws 2 giant weegly at once, and eventually sends his hawk after you as well, makes this guy, well, pretty nuts. I actually felt pretty bad after killing this guy, since all he ever wanted was to be accepted. Well, personally,
poor
if
dude.
I were an Aborigine, I'd want this guy on my side.
Amen. Especially with this boomerang skills. Weekly. Sorry, Hawk. That guy.
Tales of Graces.
Hey, Graces.
Truth be told, I haven't played this game very much. When it comes to Namco's Tales series, my expertise lies more around Symphonia and Vesperia. But I know a weapon master when I see one, and Malik Caesar is freaking crazy. Malik is an instructor at the Windor Knight Academy and is the one responsible for training the game's main protagonist, Asbel Lant. Which is funny because Asbel's style is absolutely nothing like Malik's. He is the mentor of the group, older and wiser, experienced but very harried from his life of struggle. Why is it that I'm always drawn to the older Tales characters?
Hey, Rim.
Now, Malik's weapon is... You're gonna love this. A Bladerang.
Bladerang?
Silly, yes, but it kind of makes sense in a weird way.
Right?
I mean, the idea of a traditional throwing stick was that it was a close-quarters club that could also be thrown, and lots of ancient users of the Weeglee probably swung it at angry animals while in the jam of a hunting grounds. I bet they weren't as good as Malik, though. Looking at him, you'd probably expect him to be a frontline fighter, but actually, he is a mix of ranger and black mage. Yeah, Malik is actually extremely fragile. Despite his high HP, his low defenses serve him little. Malik fights back with two main stances. Burst style is when he casts a lot of his ice, fire, and wind spells. Assault style, on the other hand, uses the boomerang in a way that Captain Boomerang from the Flash comics would call ridiculous. Firing waves of magic boomerang projectiles,
hey, how about you teach me
riding
some, huh?
the Bladerang.
Dang.
Then there are his mystic arts, which combine his combat expertise with his penchant for spells, creating an explosion of... just...
all the elements.
If Malik isn't the greatest boomerang wielder, he's definitely the most outlandish.
I mean, he's got the skills to back it up, though. And the #1 boomerang wielder is...
One problem with RPG characters is that unless you've played them firsthand, unless you've actually used them against enemies while being familiar with the battle system, it can be hard to fully understand how good a character is. But if you haven't played Skies of Arcadia, I highly recommend that you amend that. Skies of Arcadia is a Dreamcast classic with a sprawling world, a deep story, and lovable characters. Our heroes are the young pirate king Vise, and his childhood friend, our #1 for today, Aika. Where do I even start with her? She's like the perfect person to have with you on a Sky Pirate adventure. She's funny, she's a great friend, she's got a healthy obsession with treasure, and she's always there to keep Vise in good spirits. In one segment of the game, Vise and Aika get separated, and it's one of the most rewarding moments in the game when you finally get them back together. Next, look at the weapon. I'm not sure what it's made of, but it's just as comically large as Slasher Hawk's Weekly, but still has the aesthetic of a childhood toy like Hope's weapon of choice. All the weapons in this game can be shifted at will between 6 colors, which correspond to the 6 moons of Arcadia and the 6 schools of magic. So when Aika hits a button to change the color of a boomerang, it's either to do more damage to a certain enemy, or to learn that school of magic faster. Though proficient with all spells, Aika has a certain affinity for the Red Moon, able to learn fire-based and attack stat-raising spells with ease. Finally, let's see how she fights. When basic attacking, Aika automatically either swings her boomerang or throws it, depending on how close she is to her target. Her damage tends to be on the lower side, but that's not counting the special moves that Aika can use. By spinning her weapon, Aika can create a Delta Shield to protect her party from spells, or she can unleash several attacks that hit all opponents, putting Link's Z-targeting chains to shame. Generally, these involve converting her weapon into several blazing crescents that raise the battlefield. Make sure you learn Lambda Burst as soon as possible. It can usually KO all basic enemies in one hit. When I was playing, this was my most used ability, allowing me to end most random encounters in one action. That alone is enough to get Aika to the top spot, but just for fun, let's wrap up the qualities of a boomerang wielder that we've learned from Aika. They can be children, or at least possess a childlike spirit that lends to this less conventional toy of a weapon. More importantly, they are also loyal and, excuse the obvious joke, can be counted to always come back. We see this with the Boomerang Bro to King Bowser or Sir Kibble to King Dedede, Slasher Hawk with his allegiance to his people, Zhurong to help her tribe and her loving husband, or Malik with his hope to protect his new family. Sivir and Dynamo, interestingly, are in complete contrast to this, having no allegiance but to themselves, kind of a subversion of this little trope we found. But in the case of Aika, it's her friendship with Vise spiritually tying them together, and it seems that despite everything that they go through, it all comes full circle. Combined with her awesome abilities and combat prowess with the weapon, this makes Aika, in my opinion, the #1 greatest boomerang wielder in video game history. I'm the Green Scorpion, and I'll see you guys next time.
Oh. I gotta say, Aika's got some, like, strength. Oh, okay, I thought there was something more, but oh well. Sorry. Anyway, there you go, the top 10 boomerang wielders, and I gotta say, he's made some good choices. So let me know what you guys think, and until next time, like, subscribe for more. See ya.